All right, so now we move on from responsible gaming. Too bad that Dan Iljovic left. That we have an expert in AI on the stage right now, who can maybe clear things on artificial intelligence. So the moderator of this session is Anne-Marie Furtschegger. Can I? All right. Okay, so the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Sultan, and good afternoon. I hope you're still up for some new thoughts on what the business is driving in the future. Just a recent market research predicted that in the coming years, worldwide, the online gaming industry will still experience growth rates of around 9 to 10% year on year. And by 27, the size of the market should reach 130 billion US dollars. So although we see some consolidation rounds again, there is room for growth. And the study also says that new technologies, new services, and new products are the main drivers of this growth. And so we will discuss exactly that with our interesting panelists of today. On the left-hand side, Robert Dowling. He is the Chief Commercial Officer of GlobalBet, one of the biggest providers of virtual sports and games. Then in the middle, Vladan Blagojevic. He is the marketing project manager at Odin.gg, a sponsor of this event today, and a Czechia-based B2B provider of live esports odds. And Péter Szabó, he is the CEO of AceTech development, and he focuses very much on machine learning. But they will still tell us much more about that. Myself, I'm in the online gambling business for over 20 years, not as long as Péter, but nonetheless for a while. And I mainly accompanied regulatory processes across Europe. I was also the Secretary General of the Portuguese Trade Association. Now let's dig in and start. Robert, may I start with you? The company has been founded back in 2004, I think. And that's quite a while, nearly 20 years as well. You work with in-house developers. And how did the business change over the years? And to which extent did AI play an increasing role with your products?
So the business is about 17, 18 years old. And obviously, virtual sports came up in the beginning when we started having computer-generated images, similar to FIFA, what you see and everything. So it's an AI RNG sort of based game where different sections of the game are taken and RNG pulls up to different sections. There isn't too much AI in that, I'll be honest with you. The AI comes more later on in the date, but the very original way of doing it was purely RNG based. Obviously, the technology has changed a lot, and technology has been changed from bandwidth. Obviously, we now have much faster internet, which obviously supports much higher resolution images, much higher resolution items, plus our televisions, our screens, everything we're surrounded by. I mean, have any of you recently watched a movie from the 80s on your 70-inch 4K screen and looked at it and said, oh, I love this movie, it's a great movie, and suddenly you're going, I really can't see this movie because of the advancements in technology. Obviously the advancements of how we present our content has changed. Coming from slots today, you can't look at a slot from 20 years ago and say, oh, it looks great. The imagery, the definition, the finer granularity of how the game is presented to you, coming from not only the tech behind it of how it made it, but also the visuals. So the visuals, the sound, everything has become the attention to detail has changed. And of course, the way the mathematics is calculated, the way the engagement with the player is being created, that also had to change over the years because people were not just expecting something, oh, I'm going to go play a game, spin, win, brilliant. You had to create the odds for them. You had to create player engagement that made it interesting and kept the player, let's say, not, how can I say it? Kept the player engaged in a way that it remained fun. We have to keep things fun and not sort of make it like obsessive or something like that. So that's where the technology, AI comes in only from the level of, in our case, creating the motions of the player. It's not used with player engagement because that would be maybe sometimes a little bit over the top, but creating a visually pleasing experience, and the AI is helping us create these moments, and that's where we've seen the advancements. Obviously, there's more to come. You'll find out much later, but it's a constant challenge to keep up to date.
But do you see in customers' behavior a direct response to the improvement of how games are presented today compared to 10 years ago?
I mean, of course you would, yes, because obviously today we understand more of how we need to engage the player. We also understand of what not to do. It sounds that, let's be honest, McDonald's, for example, creates an outlet with certain colors that make people sit down for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and it's designed in a way to feel welcoming. We've studied this, we know it now. And obviously that kind of studies, those kinds of education has moved into various industries, including our own. So we make sure that we do things in a way that, yes, things are pleasing, sounds are pleasing, similar.
It's more realistic,
yes,
also somehow.
And obviously all this knowledge that comes from not only our industry, other industry, has transcribed to us as well.
Yeah. Péter, thank you for that, Robert. Péter, you also work with AI, but more with machine learning. Could you a little bit present what you're doing in your company and how this is related to gaming and to other sectors, perhaps?
Yeah, so our company, AceTech, is not a purely gambling industry focused company, but I think the gambling industry and the gaming industry in general benefits the most from the research we are doing. We are doing costume research, which is specific for each client. We are at the moment only business to business, but in the future that might change. And the way we started was always with a customer centric approach. My background is in user experience, so I always wanted to create better and better experiences for the users. And then realizing about 7 years-ish ago that in order to create a very, very good user experience for the users of the future, you would need a UX designer next to each user, which is obviously not possible. And fortunately, that kind of was the new advent of machine learning when not just hardware-wise, there was a huge technological leap with the NVIDIA CUDA cores and better and faster GPU-based solutions, but also developing machine learning solutions was becoming easier and easier with frameworks such as the TensorFlow or the PyTorch, which we are still using as of today. And going from there, we realized that a subset of machine learning, which is called the collaborative filtering, is very beneficial to create a customized experience for the user. And to give you a really concrete example from the gaming industry, let's say that you are interested in sports betting, not casino, then the algorithm will learn that. And then it would learn that you are more interested in football, and then it would learn that you are more interested in, let's say, the Premier League, and then it will learn that your favorite team is the Arsenal, and then the next time you'll log in, you would see the homepage in Arsenal colors, and you would also get the next games, and you would also be offered maybe some options to bet on things like, okay, the Gunners are playing with Chelsea tonight. Do you want to bet on them winning and things like that? And this obviously creates a better experience for the users, and it also customizes the whole thing. But this is just the beginning, I believe. And the technology behind the whole collaborative filtering is called the collaborative filtering because it's a machine learning algorithm, a family of algorithms more like, which is based on every user's preferences and the similarities and dissimilarities between them. And this can be really large data sets of millions of users. I also have a case study I published in 2020 where there is a 20 million user event database. And it works now in a real fast way, so it's usable in production. But this, as I mentioned, this is just the beginning. Our company is just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible in customized experiences. We have 46 developers in the middle of Transylvania, and we are trying to see how we can create better and better experiences, I mentioned, but this is not for advertising, just to give you a context.
We will get back to this later still, the individualized product and service. But that also includes, for instance, individualized pricing, or do you something in this right? Okay, Vladan, thank you, Vladan. Esports, it's your big topic, and as I understand it, you provide for odds for esports events, and especially for live esports events, or is it more behind?
Yes, so we have a lot of different solutions. Our main products are esports odds feed, but also risk management and iframe solutions, which is kind of a platform. And basically, we provide these odds everywhere from pre-match to live, and also a lot of different selections, handicaps and so on. Basically, this is what we do. Could you repeat the question one more time?
No, I just wanted to fully understand what your company delivers, and in how far you also work with artificial intelligence or with automated systems.
So AI is misused term. We don't use it a lot. We use couple of it, mainly when we do not have any data from the servers. We use stream recognition to extract the data from it and base it into our algorithms, which then can later on calculate the odds. But what we mostly use are automated systems, which we have a team of mathematicians who create these algorithms and who create these models, which are later applied into our odds. And based on that, traders have the main input. So we couldn't we do not have machines who are recognizing the situation and making the input. The last call is the traders itself. This is where we are good at.
So that is quite an aid, a sustaining tool to help traders.
Yes,
yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, so that is pretty much then similar to all other bookmakers, how they work.
Yeah, the model is not different than any traditional sportsbook.
Okay, thank you very much. Robert, apart from what you offer traditionally, you now entered also a new sector, namely the NFT marketplace, the non-fungible token marketplace with the NFT Pro League series. We've seen this year the European regulation MiCA in regard to crypto assets and currencies. Nonetheless, this is still, and there are a couple of companies out there offering services with NFTs, but it's still a very visionary market, a market more of the future. But you entered it. What made you take this decision, and What were your first experiences, and how do you think, also in light of the current issues the crypto market faces, how do you see this development for the next 1 to 2 years?
Okay, wow, loaded question, huh? So the first thing, let's break it down a little bit, right? So NFTs, I think everybody was following the buzz that was around a year ago. The big buzz started off with a painting being sold, an NFT being sold for 39 or 60 million. So every businessman that had said, "Oh, we need to create NFT. This is somewhere we're going to make money for nothing." Reality is, it's not like that. We got into the NFTs just to experiment with it, to see what was happening. But obviously, there's another reasoning behind why we wanted to get into NFTs. It's the buzzword that's around today, which is the metaverse. In fact, Conrad Gill was supposed to be on this panel, which he's not, which have been an interesting topic to follow up on this, because the reasoning behind why we would go into NFTs is to start understand where the metaverse is going, where we are going with our products. Now, this panel is about talking about advancements in technologies in the industry, and it is not something that we can ignore. Today, about 10 years ago, Alex Tomic started off with the first VR systems, and that was where he had tried to create a casino that was within a world and zone, a 3D world, using VR, and maybe he was 10 years too early. Today we are sitting down where we have the metaverse. You have properties being sold in the metaverse, buildings being sold next to Snoop Dogg for God knows how much, but it is generating interest from our younger people, our 18, 19, 20-year-olds, generation, whatever it's called now. I've lost count at ZY something. That this NFT was us trying to understand where this is going. We did not look at it as being a business venture yet, but it gave us an understanding of how the payment structure works behind it, how to enter the market, how can we place our NFTs into a metaverse, let's say, as well. And in this case, because we are offering virtual sports, would we be putting our NFTs into a situation where these are actual players playing in the metaverse? Maybe, I don't know, this is just talking out the top of my head. Maybe having them being the AI behind it would be based on the statistics of a real player that would then have an NFT metaverse game. So that is why we went into that, to try and understand it. Is it still early days? We are about 10 years, I think, away from understanding where this is going to go. But to quote someone that said, to quote somebody from 2 years ago, a conference I was at, where they mentioned how today in Grand Theft Auto, you have actual casinos using actual tokens, not real money, tokens. They have 10 million subscribers, all with their credit card accounts. What if someone flicks the switch and turns that on? So this is where we are standing today. We have the metaverse coming. We have what we are doing. We have gaming companies that do all that. And we need to understand more of where this is going to go. And that was the whole NFT project. How it will affect us. I'm going to the second part of it. I didn't forget how it will affect us. I mean, I'd like to see it being understood by the regulators as well, because it is a very dangerous playground for a lot of people. I mean, before us, we had a panel on responsible gaming. Now, NFTs comes from the crypto world. The crypto world is extremely not regulated in regards to, it's very transparent, but completely not regulated in the way the money flow happens. About 3 days ago or a week ago, we had Russian banks announce that they are now accepting cryptos to be able to go past the sanctions. So this is going to maybe pick at something that will take it to a situation of, are cryptos going to be finally regulated? Yes, they should. But then you come to the point of how we're going to do this, because there are still so many unknowns. And this is where the problem lies, where a lot of the people from the regulatory side, from governments, are not concerned on how to understand something. But going back to the panels that we had this morning, we had one word and one word only: tax. Hardly any people talked about understanding products, understanding our industry, or understanding the current financial situations around the world. And that is where I'm concerned.
I think it's very courageous, and I think it's the right step. And I think Péter can also tell us a little bit about crypto things. You worked in the past with crypto casinos.
Oh, well, yeah, yes and no. I was involved with Casino Coin, which was, I would say, at the first wave of the crypto craze in 2008, 18. It's like 4 years ago. That's in the crypto world, ancient history, like the dinosaurs. And back then, what we also realized that there are three major problems with cryptocurrency in relationship to gambling. And one of them, which we identified, was that it has a very bad user experience, mainly due to trust issues, because most users have a generic mistrust towards gambling companies in general. And if you add the mistrust at that time with cryptocurrencies, because in 2018 it was a not very well understood field, I don't think that changed that much, but still it's more mainstream today. And also the second part was that because the gaming industry, by definition, is a very regulated industry, and it should be, then when you try to add crypto to it, it's also something very ambiguous, and then the regulators would also have some problems, especially because this was on the Isle of Man, which is obviously starting to get attraction. A lot of gaming-related companies have their operational headquarters there, or for tax reasons as well. So some, if you add those two together and you look it from the outside, you might think that okay, the companies are doing this only to evade tax even more than they are doing now. And then the third problem, which we identified, was that the cryptos at that time were mostly associated with illegal activities like buying weapons or drugs on the darknet or whatever. And the gambling industry obviously wants to depart as much as possible from anything shady, because we want to make sure that this is all white money, nothing illegal is involved. So that's why I think that Casino Coin was way too early back then. I'm not part of it anymore, but I'm happy that it survived somehow, unlike most other crypto startups at the time. But I believe that for the future, as in 4 years from now, it will be a much clearer picture, as we heard before. It's very likely that crypto will be regulated in one shape or form, and also the acceptance of the users will be higher. They will understand that this is not illegal, this is not shady, and they can trust their crypto assets into gaming companies. And when that happens, it can create a much better experience if also the wallets and also the acceptance of crypto, and maybe the payouts as well in crypto, could be made in a user-friendly way. Yeah,
ask you a question, but
please do.
I understand what you sorry. It's a panel. I understand what you're saying, but cryptos is usually associated with casino licenses, let's say, that target unregulated markets, right? Why would an operator with a local license who gets deposit charges, let's say, at domestic rates, which are insanely cheaper than gas prices, whatever you're trying to transfer cryptos, why would a regulated operator need to go to crypto? Why?
I would say for the main reason could be if a lot of users keep their money in crypto and they like the benefits of that, and if they have the money in it, they are not very inclined to switch to fiat. And if one of the competition is doing that, then they could attract those users who have the crypto assets in their crypto wallets, and they don't want to switch it back to fiat currencies. And I think that could be the main source of.
So using cryptos as an acquisition tool as opposed to using it as a payment tool.
At first, yes, but then if it reaches a certain critical mass, then it would be a mainstream thing, and then it would be a payment tool generally used. But I think we are a bit far from that.
I don't know, because I think you going.
No, I think it's
But you're
important
right
that we
in the line of
simply
thinking.
discuss it because I think, and we discussed it at lunch, cryptos are still a little bit marginalized in our industry. But I think they will gain importance. And so far as I know, cryptocurrencies are only regulated in in Malta. And I think that is the next step which we have to tackle the future regulations we will need. But I wanted to just go to Vladan again. Compared to cryptocurrencies, esports was also a little bit an outsider for a very long time. But also thanks to the pandemics, esports rose much quicker than it was predicted. And latest figures say that by 25, over 640 million will watch esports worldwide. It's also said by studies that millennials already like esports as much as they like traditional sports. How did that, in particular during the pandemic, impact your business? And how do you see the downsides and the chances that this attention received over the last 2 years?
Well, esports was big even before pandemic. COVID obviously, helped it to improve a lot. But even before, we have some studies from Czech-based betting company called Tipsport. They recently acquired 1 million registered user. So back in 2019, the average bet size for esports was $29. Where football was only $5. So even before COVID, it was quite big. How I see it developing afterwards, it's gonna be massive, mainly because it's a fast-paced environment. It's different than virtuals, which Rob is doing, but it's kinda there are some comparisons. So basically, from what we saw, that most of the betting action, most of the betting volume comes in live. According to our study from our clients, 86% of the bets comes into the live itself, which is huge amount. And I think that that number gonna go up because mostly so-called generation Z is following this. And myself, I'm also young, we like things to be fast, right? So we are seeing a match, we are seeing a esports match, we want to bet on it because it's fast, we're gonna get the result really fast than if we are watching the, let's say, soccer match who is 90 minutes long. So this is why it is in particular so much bets are being placed in live.
So it's quite higher than traditional sports live. What you said 80%.
86%.
86, because traditional sports, I think it's around 65% live. Now, esports, some countries say it's kind of regulated because it's under the other bets that you can range esports. How do you see that? And the big question in esports is always, is it sports? Is it not sports? Is it video games? How should it be potentially regulated? Or is it sufficient how some jurisdictions approach it already today? Where are also the downsides? Because minors are involved a lot, or very young people need a special protection. What's your stance? And you say you also work in risk management, or you do some risk topics as well. How do you tackle this angle?
Well, basically, it's a broad topic, right? So one could discuss if esports and sports are the same. My opinion that esports is coming there. First of all, you mentioned that some projections are saying that by 2025 we're gonna have more than 600 million viewers, right? And another thing is that, and this is the one that we discussed in Belgrade, right? The prize pools of esports are coming to match traditional sports. So I'm working in marketing, so I have a lot of details, right? Back in 2021, prize pool of the Wimbledon was $30 million, and prize pool of the international in Dota 2 was $35 million. So esports is already there if you compare it in those manners. When it comes to governing bodies, this is something that a lot of so-called federations tried, but at this moment there are no governing bodies within esports. There is AceTech, Esports Integration Commission, that tries to regulate these markets together, but the one that is the most who act as our regulators are the game developers itself, because they have full control of their games, how they're gonna look, what they're gonna do, and so on. And it's difficult to kind of embroil them all together because each game is done by different developer. You have Valve with CS:GO and Dota 2, then you have Riot with League of Legends, Valorant, Blizzard with other games, and so on. And these are kind of all competitors in some way, and it's really difficult to put them under one roof. AceTech is trying that with CS:GO and Dota 2. So far, they're putting some, let's say, match fixing things on the day of light. What happened in CS:GO, because it's a virtual online competition, right? And they implied some bans. Game developers supported them, so they kind of got this statue where their word makes sense, right? It matters. And we as Odin, we also work directly with them. We have a risk management team that tries to act accordingly. So whenever they see in live, whenever they see some suspicious or malicious activity, they try to report it through proper channels to AceTech, and then AceTech conducts an investigation where we try to help, because we have this data that is available from the game itself.
But would you say that this needs more structure still, or do you think the kind of auto control is fine for the time being?
I think that game developers needs to work on those, because without them, nothing is. I mean, there are governments that try to do it. You have this ISF, like Esports Federation, that tries to do it, but without the support of game developer, they cannot do anything, because game developer owns the game, owns the right to the game, and no one except them can kind of limit those. Or if the government directly limits them, to pressure them to apply.
Okay, so that would be the workaround. Is it the same, Robert, for virtual games? I mean, we have some jurisdictions, again, who have virtual games and virtual sports explicitly regulated, but many somehow tolerate it because they say how the legislation is drafted, it can cover also virtual sports and games.
I mean, so like Italy is one regulation that heavily regulates virtual sports. They even do a limit on how many games we can offer per day. And I quite like the way they've done it. I think it was done in a smart way, where it was calculated as a sports book and not as an RNG product. Some countries look at it as an RNG product, and obviously, being an RNG product, it would fall under casino. To me, it's a mix of both, obviously. But to me, being under the RNG obviously makes life so much easier to enter markets, because casino is such an easier entry point into certain markets, whereas the sportsbook audits are much tougher and much harder, because usually governments have a monopoly on sports, so they just make it a bit more difficult. I mean, I don't see it as being a problem. I don't see it as being a problem that it is differentiated. I think it's actually quite normal, and like same as the way different classifications of different licenses in different countries are being done. It's people classify an online gaming company differently from a B2B company, depending on license. So I don't see it as being an issue. I don't really have too much of an opinion on it, I would be honest.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
I'd be straight to the point.
as it is right now,
Yeah.
you're quite happy with it.
I don't think it should change. It depends on how the regulator understands it. This is something that has been around for 20 years, actually even before that. In gambling halls in Vegas, you had, I think the original virtual sports came up about 50 years ago, where they used to read scripts on a radio of a football match, randomly picked out of a wheel, and then that was the very first virtual sport that came out. Then eventually it turned into being a mechanical virtual sport. You even have in casinos in Nevada where they had the horse racing on the mechanical horse racing. That's virtual sports without computers, without AI, but literally a complete random. So it's an old technology. It is not a new technology that is repackaged every year as technology goes along. As opposed to, I mean, earlier you said something about esports, for example, and you didn't mention it. I want to jump onto it. I'm a very big fan of what's going on in the esports world, and I'm the oldest guy on the panel, by the way. I'm a very big fan of what's going on. And 5 years ago, I think we were inside this room. We had a very big conversation when I was in the US talking about regulation in esports. And you mentioned before that kids are exposed to it, children are exposed to it. Yes, of course they are, but they're exposed to basketball, football, baseball, exactly the same things as a sport. The product itself that people are gambling on is not the esports. The actual gambling on esports is esports. And that is where you need to differentiate with children are into this or not. So that's where the derivative needs to come, that the regulation needs to happen on where the gambling is happening, not on stifling the sport itself. We do not penalize children from going to play football at 6 years old because their parents can gamble on the teams. And that's where sorry to jump to that question.
That is fully correct. But what I meant and probably didn't say correctly, it's not so much to penalize those who play the video games, but should there be specific rules, like in football, for instance, many regulators exclude those matches where to a majority minors play the match. So should that be excluded in
that
your
is also
view?
in gambling on esports. I believe you cannot have 50 players.
It's the same.
It's exactly the same.
If the player is 16 year older, then they can bet. If they have like less years, they are younger, you cannot bet on that match.
I believe there was a company that received a fine. I can't remember exactly who the company was or when. It was about a year ago, because they had a game where there was a last minute substitute where an under 17 player played on the team. Obviously, Betrayed, they missed it. Happened. And they got fined the $500,000 or 1 million.
So it's exactly the same
Exactly.
already now. Oh, that's good to hear. Now, Péter, you are also probably confronted with regulations such as data protection. You use a lot of data to develop your products. How do those regulations impact your work?
That's a very good question, and I often get it, and rightly so, because fortunately, or from our perspective, it creates a bit of a difficulty, but it's a good thing that the EU introduced the General Data Protection laws and the GDPR, and this means that we need to be more careful with the data, but we started AceTech before the GDPR was. We started after, but we started the research before. But after GDPR came into full effect, it shifted the industry a bit, in a sense that now, first of all, we need to be sure that all the data is anonymized before it reaches even the researchers. But that's not a big deal, because we don't care about the user's real name, or especially not the credit card details or any sensitive data. We only care about a ID which is anonymized, and their behaviors. And so far, the regulators in EU level don't really have anything against signals, as they as long as they are coming from the same source, meaning that because we are developing for a certain business, we are not developing a catch-all solution. So when we develop a machine learning model, that model will have a data set. In reality, it's 3 data sets: the training, the test, and the validation data sets. But all the data in those data sets are coming from the same company. And because if we take a gaming company, because you start playing at the games offered by that company, and you agree to all the policies they have for data gathering, you agree that your data will be used, and it will be used in a way to create a better experience for you. So we are not buying or selling anyone's data, and we are also not mixing the data between different sources. As I mentioned at the beginning, we had a project for that was for e-commerce, and it was also from Russia, so GDPR doesn't even apply to it. And in that case, we had a very large data set coming from multiple e-commerce companies, but they were all owned by the same group. So we always separate the data based on their owner, and it never gets mixed, it never gets contaminated from other data sources. So this way we can guarantee that we always comply with the strictest regulation, even stricter than GDPR would require, because this is the only way to make sure that those will stay usable even for the future. Because I personally believe that the data security and data management regulations will become even stricter in the near future than they are now.
Okay, so stricter rules again also here. How do you think, perhaps a question to all of you, how do you think the gaming sector will look like, let's say, in a couple of years from now? How quickly do you think that the metaverse, the intertwining between the real and the virtual world will be in the gaming world? Will the metaverse be especially relevant for the gaming world? What are your visions on those couple of years ahead of us? Vladan, would you like to start?
Yeah, so I believe that in next couple of years, and it's already happening, when it comes to sports betting even and esports also, a lot of betting companies are transitioning fully to online. I have some studies from actually Serbia, where a couple of companies that were pretty big in retail a couple of years ago, they partially transitioned to online, and now their revenue looks like 70% that's coming from online and 30% all from retail. They keep retail only because a lot of people in Balkans, used to bet real money, right? They want to feel that paper. But I believe in next couple of years that this transition will fully apply, because having online business is a lot cheaper than having retail stores all around the world, all around the city. And you also save costs on manpower as well. You don't need to employ additional employees. So this is where I see it comes. Also, the biggest problem when it comes to that will be the crypto that we spoke about. Crypto is already started to be used in a lot of sportsbook, especially in esports. You have a lot of sportsbook that are fully crypto only. They do not accept fiat; they accept crypto. Thunderpick, Sportsbet.io in Latam, and so on. So the main things comes with that clean versus dirty money how it's going to be regulated, because it really needs to do it to different reasons.
Robert, you already mentioned the metaverse. Is this still not going to happen in 5 years? How quickly is this going to happen so that we all have our glasses on and live in parallel worlds?
I think in the next 5 years, we're still going to be trying to understand it. It's still something we have not understood. And reality is that we're not going to be walking around with either our glasses on or our augmented reality glasses going on, which Google tried to do. Reality is that we'll probably still be doing the same thing in the next 5 years. We'll still be looking at our screens and playing on a screen. I don't think that will change. But what will change, I think, is the way we interact with our sports books. And the screen will still remain a single screen. But the way we interact with our sports book, the way we interact with our games might be a little bit less, or a little bit more, actually no, a little bit more intrusive, let's say, and not necessarily just to the gambling industry, to other industries, because today we are sitting down in an ecosystem where, I'm going to use Apple as an example. You have your headphones, you have your watch, you have your phone, you have your tablet. Everything is synced with each other. Same thing with Android. Same thing with Tesla, that are now launching their own phone as well. So the phone will be integrated with the car. I think we're going to sit down and maybe not just talk about gambling. Maybe we should talk about where we are going with this. Everything that we have is quick, on demand, fast. Same thing is going to happen in gambling. Everything needs to happen quick, fast. It needs to be on the go, quick. Same as esports. You mentioned earlier, a round of an esports game is much quicker than 90 minutes for a football match. We do not have time to wait 90 minutes for the result anymore. I mean,
especially in this life today, right?
Exactly. So we see it from virtual sports. In virtual sports, reason why it works, we don't see bets that are very high. People play small bets, obviously, because it's a 1 minute game in a 1 minute league with 20 teams playing against each other, just like a normal football league, but 9,000 times a day, for example, right? So it's fast, it's quick, and that's where we are today. We want things now. We don't want to wait for it.
I want just to get quickly back to that you say everything is moving online, and traditional casinos, they just lose relevance. Do the others agree? Is this not simply a complementary business? Do you really believe that land-based casinos will more and more disappear, or do you think they just have to reinvent themselves?
I disagree, actually.
Okay.
Although we've had COVID, where we were stuck in our rooms, stuck in our offices, doing virtual conferences and Skype meetings. And as soon as COVID went away, we had the biggest year that travel has seen in God knows how long. It's a nightmare to get around. I think people still want to interact with each other. I think casinos are still relevant. Yes, they need to reinvent. They need to reinvent themselves a little bit and sometimes go back to the roots of being an experience and being a journey, of walking into the casino and feeling like you are James Bond walking in, and that myth. That's where I think they will still remain relevant.
Yeah, but do you agree that this is your opinion? Because I don't want to I don't want to say, but you are older, right? So you are millennial.
Hey, you call me old.
So yes, millennials think so, yes, but the fact is that Generation Z is coming, and like my generation is probably last generation that played football outside, right? After me.
Now you don't steal that from my generation.
I mean, we are the last one when it comes, right? So after that, kids are with computers, with tablets, with everything, and the reality is they do not have much contact. Even during the COVID, even before COVID, you can see kids. You cannot see them in park playing. You can see them taking phones. I have a child, a son. He's like almost 2 years old, and he runs around and takes phone from me, like from my pocket. So I think the reality is that Generation Z is taking over the world, and there is this moment where it's gonna fully transition, and people that remember how it was in casino, that remember James Bond movies, they gonna extinguish, they're gonna disappear, right? Because you mentioned before you don't enjoy watching the movie from 80s, right, on your big screen, and so I mean that's my point.
But I think Péter is also still a very, very elaborate opinion on that.
Yeah, actually, I'm probably between you two in age, but I believe that the spark to ignite a really drastical change is also somehow related to hardware. I also believe that the main reason why virtual reality didn't pick up so far is because we are lacking a good hardware piece for that. So I have tried the Oculus 2 and the HTC Vive, and they are just not there at the moment. But as soon as someone, and probably based on how much Meta is investing in creating the next groundbreaking virtual reality headset, it might happen sooner than we think. Maybe even this year it might be revealed around Christmas that Meta's new headset, which we know that it will be called Meta, but not much else is certain. It might change the industry as a whole, because if you remember things like when the smartphones entered the world, or when the digital photography entered the world, it kind of shook the whole industry in its foundation, and things that were accepted as a fact and the reality of the market, and multi-billion-dollar businesses such as Kodak before the digital camera age, or such as Nokia before the smartphones, those were established. No one or most people didn't predict that in a very short time span they could lose significant market share, and a new innovative piece of hardware will take over, and then the whole infrastructure, a lot of software will be produced for that new hardware, and it will change the world itself, like how the smartphone did. And I believe the same thing could happen with virtual reality glasses, because it's not that people don't want to live in a virtual world. We know that kids are particularly living in the very limited virtual world of Fortnite, for instance, or even in my generation, a lot of people, including myself, spent countless hours in World of Warcraft, which was a very limited, very specific virtual world. Now imagine if the experience would be much better, and the main problem at the moment with virtual world is not just hardware, but the generation of it. Because if you know the AAA titles in the gaming industry, such as creating a new Assassin's Creed title. A few days ago, it was revealed that Ubisoft is working on 3 new Assassin's Creed titles. Now, to create those, you need a huge team, at least 100 people in it, and you need countless working hours into it until it's starting to get shape, and you reach the level of let's say what you are expecting from an Assassin's Creed game. Now, the problem is that it's very work intensive, and essentially this year we have seen a huge shift where image generation was solved with a different approach with machine learning, and the new diffusion model based image generation such as the Stable Diffusion or Midjourney created image generation, creates images which previously took hours, if not days, for a concept artist or for a photographer or for whatever. Now it takes a fraction of a second, depends on your hardware, to generate from a prompt. Like you say, I want to see the picture of this conference based on Rembrandt style, and Midjourney would generate a picture for that, or not just one, as many as you wish, and at a very good price point too. Like $30 is the monthly subscription to Midjourney, and we see that it's happening, and the industry is really interested. The evaluation of Stable Diffusion was $1 billion, which was revealed, I think, 2 days ago, and that's the most popular diffusion model to create so-called AI art or AI generated images. And I think next year those models will evolve one step further and will be able to create virtual worlds, because they are all already researching that direction. And when the machine learning algorithms will create the virtual worlds, then it's no longer hundreds of employees and hundreds of hours from each employee to create a part of a level for Assassin's Creed, but instead you just prompt what you want, and the algorithms, by using the GPUs, they would just create that. So I believe that's the next evolutionary step, which will totally change the gambling industry as well, including virtual sports and including esports as well, I believe.
Vladan, Robert, you still want to reply to that, or are you fine with your final words?
I will stick with my words, because I still believe that we are humans at the end of the day, and we still need the social element, which is real. I do understand that where technology is taking us, but I do also know that people need to meet people. And something you said earlier, that sportsbook shops are closing down, for example, right?
No, I said that the
Revenues are decreasing.
Switched.
I mean, you find certain countries, certain people that would not go and place a single bet online, because for them their betting is a social thing. They'll go and watch a game of football in the pub, play a cheeky fiver in the pub where they've got the store or the sportsbook bar, and that is a whole social element behind it. And because they work behind a computer from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, don't really have a social life or anything, that is where they manage to get a little bit of interaction. Don't look at people that live in big cities, because that's not your demographic. Your demographic are who want the virtual worlds as well, don't get me wrong, who want to have this. Your demographic are people that are slightly isolated. They're living in places where they need to drive for 2 hours to get to a big city or a big village. And that is where you get people that go to their sports bar, little sports betting bar on the Friday night and place their bets.
Yes, but they still can go to that sports bar, have drinks, have meals, watch football, and bet from their phone, right?
Yeah, same thing. Yes, no, I'm not disagreeing with you on the betting from the phone, but it's about
I'm saying about the online, like online as in online revenue. Like even when you are in pub betting from phone, you're betting online. You're not betting in retail.
Yeah, okay. From that element, I will agree with you, but not with the closing down.
No, I didn't say it's going to close. I'm just saying that a lot of even casinos. I was speaking in particular with Sportsbook, right? But even casinos, we were in Asia on Asian Summit. Even a lot of land-based casinos, they are looking to switch partially online, because they know that online is the future as well.
So taking your discussion and going back 6 months to a year, working on platforms, which is what I've done most of my time during the pandemic, you had a lot of land-based casinos who were not ready for the pandemic, who suddenly panicked and needed to get online as quickly as possible. So yes, they realized that their business model wasn't sustainable where it is only land-based. And today they are starting to get, that is why we are seeing a big shift coming in from the US, where the traditional land-based casinos are coming in really heavily. I don't think even how it's really aggressive, how quickly they are making the shift from going just the land-based casinos to online. We're starting to see that even in Europe, where the traditional casinos, like Casinos Austrias, are starting to make big moves, big strides to get online. And it is not coming only from the way the technology is coming; it's coming also from they lost a lot of money during these past 2 years. Simple as that.
Most of them, hardly survived because of that. It was 2 years, right?
So thank you very much. A last view from myself. I think every new technology has a lot of chances. And I think they all can live in a complementary way. I don't think that we will lose any service, any product. It will only change like it did over the last centuries. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you
so much.